Once upon a time, there was a dear little girl who was loved by everyone who looked at her, but most of all by her grandmother, and there was nothing she would not have given to the child. Once she had given her a little red cap of red velvet, which suited her so well that she would never wear anything else, and so she was always called Little Red Cap. One day her mother said to her, "Come, Little Red Cap, here's a piece of cake and a bottle of wine, and take them to your grandmother. She is ill and weak, and they will do her good. Set out before it gets hot, and when you are going, walk nicely and quietly, and do not run off the path, or you may fall and break the bottle, and then your grandmother will get nothing. When you go into her room, don't forget to say good morning, and don't peep into every corner before you do it." "I will take great care," said Little Red Cap to her mother, and gave her hand upon it. The grandmother lived out into the wood, half a league from the village, and just as Little Red Cap entered the wood, a wolf met her. Red Cap did not know him and what a wicked creature he was, and was not at all afraid of him. "Good day, Little Red Cap," said he. "Thank you kindly, wolf." "Whither away so early, Little Red Cap?" "To my grandmother's." "And what have you got in your apron?" "Cake and wine. Yesterday was baking day, so poor sick grandmother is to have something good to make her stronger." "And where does grandmother live, Little Red Cap?" "A good quarter of a league farther down into the wood. Her house stands under three large oak trees, and nut trees just below that." "You must surely know it," replied Little Red Cap. The wolf thought to himself, "What a tender young creature! What a nice plump mouthful! She will be better to eat than the old woman. I must act craftily so as to catch them both." So he walked for a short while by the side of Little Red Cap, and then said, "See, Little Red Cap, how pretty the flowers are here. Why do you not look around? I believe, too, that you do not hear how sweetly the little birds are singing. You walk gravely along as if you were going to school, while everything else out here in the wood is so merry." Little Red Cap raised her eyes, and when she saw the sunbeams dancing here and there and through the trees, and pretty flowers growing everywhere, she thought, "Suppose I take grandmother a fresh nosegay, that would please her too. And so it is so early in the day that I shall get there in good time." And so she ran from the path into the wood to look for flowers. And wherever she picked one, she fancied she still saw a pretty one farther on, and ran after it, and got deeper and deeper into the wood. Meanwhile, the wolf ran straight to the grandmother's house and knocked at the door. "Who's there?" "Little Red Cap," replied the wolf. "She is bringing cake and wine. Open the door." "Lift the latch," called the grandmother. "I'm too weak and cannot get up." The wolf lifted the latch, and the door sprang open. Without saying a word, he went straight to the grandmother's bed and devoured her. Then he put on her clothes and dressed himself up in her cap, and he laid himself in the bed and drew the curtains. Little Red Cap, however, had been running about picking flowers, and when she had gathered so many that she could carry no more, she remembered her grandmother and set out on the way to her. She was surprised to find the cottage door standing open, and she went into the room and had a strange feeling that she said to herself, "Oh dear, how uneasy I feel today, and at other times I like being so much at grandmother's." And she called out, "Good morning," but received no answer. So she went to the bed and drew back the curtains, and there lay the grandmother with a cap pulled far over her face, and was looking very strange. "Oh, grandmother," she said, "what big ears you have!" "To hear you with, my child," was the reply. "But grandmother, what big eyes you have!" "The better to see you with, my dear." "But grandmother, what large hands you have!" "The better to hug you with." "Oh, but grandmother, what a terrible mouth you have!" "The better to eat you with." And scarcely had the wolf said this, that with one bound he was up and out of bed and swallowed up Redcap. When the wolf had appeased his appetite, he lay down again in bed and fell asleep, and began to snore very loudly. The huntsman was just passing the house, and thought to himself, "How the old woman is snoring! I must just see if she wants anything." So he went into the room, and when he came to the bed, he saw that the wolf was lying in it. "Do I find you here, old sinner?" said he. "I have long sought you." Then he was just going to fire at him, and it occurred to him the wolf might be had devoured the grandmother, and she might still be saved. So he did not fire, but took out a pair of scissors and began to cut open the stomach of the sleeping wolf. When he'd made 2 snips, he saw Little Red Cap shining, and then he made snips more, and the little girl sprang out crying, "Oh, how frightened I have been! How dark it was inside the wolf!" And after that the aged grandmother came out alive also, but scarcely able to breathe. Redcap, however, quickly fetched great stones with which to filled to fill the wolf's belly. And when he awoke, he wanted to run away, but the stones were so heavy he collapsed at once and fell dead. Then all three were delighted. The huntsman drew off the wolf's skin and went home with it. The grandmother ate the cake and drank the wine with Redcap had brought, and revived. Redcap thought to herself, as long as I live, I will never by myself leave the path to run into the wood, and when her mother had forbidden me to do so. It is also related that once Redcap was again taking cakes to the great old grandmother, that another wolf spoke to her and tried to entice her from the path. Redcap, however, was on her guard and went straight forward on her way and told grandmother that she had met the wolf and that he had said good morning to her, but with such wicked eye look in his eyes that if he had not been on the public road, she was to certain he would have eaten her up. Well, said the grandmother, we will shut the door, and that he may not come in. Soon afterwards the wolf knocked and cried, open the door, grandmother. I am little Redcap, and bringing you some cakes. But they did not speak and open the door, and so the great beard stole twice or thrice around the house, and at last jumped up on the roof, intending to wait until Redcap went home in the evening, and then to steal her afterwards and devour her in the darkness. But the grandmother saw what was in this thoughts. In front of the house, in front of the house uh, was a great stone trough, and so she said to the child, take pail, Redcap. I had made some sausages yesterday, so carry the water in which I boiled them to the trough. Redcap carried them up the great trough until they were quite full. Then the smell of the sausages reached the wolf, and he sniffed and peeped down, and at last stretched out his neck so far that he could no longer keep his footing, and began to slip, and slipped from the roof straight into the great trough and drowned. But Redcap went joyously home, and no one did anything to harm her again.